Okay, for our next step, we are going to work on our stretchers. So we just finished cutting our legs in the bandsaw. I even took a little time off camera to do some sanding, so we kind of smoothed those out pretty well. Did a little bit in here too. When you are sanding, don't worry about sanding the top here or sanding these flats, sanding the bottoms. Those are all going to get cut to 8-degree angles in one of our later steps here. So just work on the things that you are going to be on the outside that you bandsawed. So, with a sanding block and your sanding block that you made and some 80 grit sandpaper, you can spend easily a class period or more really trying to get that nice. And, if you've got the time, take it. It really helps with your final score and just the overall finish and quality of your project. So we are going to transition from these. They're not done yet, but to kind of spread people out, we're going to have some people then move to the stretch, or everybody's going to move to the stretchers next, and then let some more people get caught up with the other machines before we change them over to do the last steps. So we're going to work on these stretchers next. So the next handout you're going to need is the stretcher handout. I know this drawing looks pretty overwhelming. There's a lot of detail here, but that's okay. We're only going to focus on just one little part at a time. And the first thing that we're going to work on is that they have 22.5-degree angles on the ends of these, and the overall final dimension is supposed to be 14.5. So we'll just worry about that dimension and that dimension for now to make these two angles. So how to do that, the first thing I actually want you to do is just grab both your stretchers, and we're not drawing any pencil lines, doing anything like that. What we're gonna do is go over to this miter saw over here, and it should be set up to 22.5 degrees. Hopefully you can see that. And if it's not, come get me and we'll set it. So this first one, I'm not too worried about. If you remember from the drawing, it said 14.5 was the final that we're trying to get to at the end of the day. And this one is 16 inches, if you remember, from our cross cuts on the other saw. So as long as I don't waste 1.5 inches here, I got nothing to worry about. So I'm not drawing any lines, just kind of getting over here quickly. Again, 6-inch margin of safety. So this is a good spot for your hand on this saw. As you can see, this is gonna make a good cut. Okay, with this saw, you pull this thumb here back, and then that'll activate the saw. It's kind of a two-step process. Once the saw is running, you don't have to have your thumb there anymore, so then you can just hold it here. So again, you'll see my hand do that technique here. But tight against the fence, 6-inch margin of safety, hold it down. Thumb, then hand. Release the thumb. Okay. Now this saw does have the capability to reach out like the other saw does, but I have that locked right now. So if you need it locked or unlocked, there's a little, hopefully you can see that, a little lever there, but hopefully we'll have that engaged for you. If it's not, again, you can let me know. Anyway, so we made one angle. Now we're gonna make the other. There we go. Stop. Clean up your scraps. We can bring these over back to our table. Okay, so we now have one 22.5-degree angle to work with, and we got to get to 14.5. So now we're going to take a tape measure, or if you've got one of the longer rulers, that works great too. And we are going to measure from this point that we have. We're going to measure over exactly 14.5. So that would be right there, 14.5. Double check that. We could do it this way too. You can measure 14.5. Yep, looks good. Okay, so I made a little mark there. I can make it a little easier to see. There we go. Okay, now I need to make a cut here at a 22.5-degree angle at exactly 14.5, and with that round blade coming down at on this board at any particular spot, it's going to be really hard to hit that dot. So if I could make a line here at 22.5 degrees, that would be great. And, you know, unfortunately this is 45, that's 45. I don't have this dimension to what, you know, if this was 14.5, this would be something less. I don't know what that is. You know, it'd be great if I just had something at a 22.5 degree angle that I could just lay here and just mark that. Ah, here we go. I don't know. Hopefully you were ahead of that reveal. Well done. If so. Anyway, so yeah, the reason why we cut 2 is now we have something to follow at a perfect 22.5 degree angle. Okay, so we're just using it for the angle. Obviously the length isn't right. We haven't done our cuts yet, so yeah, you can see the angle is off there. But yeah, we'll get the angle right, even though the distance isn't correct. That's okay. Okay, there we go. So now we should have perfect 14.5, 22.5 degree angles. They're opposing each other. That's what the drawing calls for. Also, the way I have this laid out, if you copy me exactly, it's going to work out perfectly for that miter saw because it's cutting away from your hand that's holding the board down. That's important. You know, we don't want to have this flipped around to where now you want to cut towards your own hand. That's not safe. So this is the way you want to do it. Okay, so we'll rinse and repeat for this one. And we could use the tape measure. If you didn't have that long ruler, it's not a big deal. We can measure 14 and... Oh, that's what these things have locks for. Okay. Graceful. There we go. Okay, 14.5. Mark it. Now I can use the other stretcher. Mark that. There we go. Okay, now we can go to the miter saw and make both of those cuts. And we'll do the same thing as before. We'll lay the saw blade right to the edge of that pencil line. And these we're going to want to get identical, the exact same length. So when we check our work, we'll make sure they're dead on. And if they are slightly off, we'll have to make a slight cut, make them slightly smaller, which we want to try to avoid, but if we got to do it, we got to do it. Okay, so again, hopefully you can get a decent view of that. Lining it up so it's the edge of our saw. You know, this is where it's nice that we had that pencil line, you know, instead of just a little mark, we can actually see the blade right on our pencil line. So again, good down pressure, pressure up against the fence, thumb and then the fingers. Okay, so just a touch of that pencil line showing. Again, I want these to be identical, and there's a later step that'll explain why that's really important, but for now, just take my word for it. Okay, so again, hopefully we get those pretty darn close. Let's see how we did. So, with one edge perfectly flush, there, you just feel how smooth they are together, then you know they're flush. How'd we do? Not bad. That'll work. It's maybe like just a hair, like barely a fingernail. So what I'm actually gonna do, I'll show you this pro tip. If you're that close, what you can do is, hopefully the camera behaves here, just touch it against the blade. Notice how I brought the blade down, just touch it against the blade. And now cut this. I don't even know if that was a 32nd of an inch. That was pretty minor. Flush, flush, we got it. That will work. Okay, so now in our next video, we will show you how to start making marks for your dados, and then we can get to our holes cut and finish up these stretchers.